Slowly but surely, things are coming together. Today, we'll go over the progress we made in our GUI. Not much, but progress nevertheless. As you can see, we are in our header file. Nothing here has changed. Well, actually, I think something has changed. I do not remember if in the last video I showed you this, but I did add an additional member, that being of type QList, which is a template member, or should I say template type. In our case, it is a QString QList called list. But apart from that, we also added this neat little destructor. As you know, destructors will be the function that runs once our objects have been destroyed. Or should I say, once our objects complete their runtime. If we head over into our implementation file, let's do a quick breakdown. Today, we set the signal and slot functionality, and we also set a basic style sheet. Let's start up here and label it as, or comment it as, 1, setup widgets. All this does is, it takes the member values from our class and initializes them to some state. Because they are all pointers, we use the new operator to dynamically allocate memory, which is just a nice way of saying we create the variables in runtime. I create my line edit. A line edit is a widget that can be used by you, the user, to interact with the system. Think of it as a little dialog box that should accept input. So we create the new line edit, and I set placeholder text. This is just the default text that appears when no user input has been recognized by the system. Now, thankfully, I do not have to code this. Qt is a huge resource. A lot of the functionality has been created by people far smarter than I. So we can thank them for that. I next create a name label, which is of type QLabel. This just gives more detail to something. In this case, it names something. We use our QLabel to name our line edit. You will see that in the GUI. I then set my body. All this does is it takes two widgets and it essentially allows one to be the focus of the other. We create another widget called dateEdit. It is of type QDateEdit. It allows the user, again, to interact with the system, but only in one manner, and that is to choose a date. We then use some of its built-in members and methods to alter its appearance. We first do this by using the setCalendar pop-up method. We set it to true. What this means is the user can not only hard input a date, but can also click on a drop-down menu that will bring up a nice calendar interface, making choosing a date much easier. We then set the minimum date, which is 1 year before today's current date. And we also set the maximum date, which is 1 year from current date. We then use the method setDisplayFormat to ensure our format of the following type: 2024 some month followed by some date. This format will not change and it will be the only acceptable format. We then create another QLabel and make it buddies with our dateEdit. We then create a checkbox. I'm sure you've seen what checkbox is. It's simply a square within which you can typically check. So this is an X, but it will be a tick. We then create two buttons of type QPushButton, and we pass in the values add and display, which will be the values rendered by those two buttons, just to give you, the user, more context on what those buttons should do. Now, let's do a quick breakdown of signals and slots again. A signal is an event that occurs. typically through user interaction. A slot is a function that runs in response to a signal. How do we do this? Qt Creator, it's quite simple. You use the connect function, and what we do is the following. We want to connect the add button to the signal of clicked. This means when a user clicks the add button, we want something to occur. What do we want to occur? We will use the add software function as our slot. What this means is when we click the add button, the signal click emits the slot add software. Where does it emit it to? It emits it to this, which is the current instance, or should I say, the dialog. Again, when we click the display button, we want the slot display list to run. We will get to these two slots in a while. A slot and a signal are simply functions. We then set our widget layout, which you can see QHbox1, QHbox2, QHbox3, QHbox4. All this does is it initially creates 1, 2, 3, 4 horizontal boxes, or should I say, think of them as horizontal lines. And we then create a vertical box, which takes those 4 lines and boxes them, or should I say, stack them upon each other, giving the appearance of one widget or one layout. We then set the initial size here of our widget. Now this is the slot add software, which means when the user clicks the add button, what happens? We create a queue string called text, and we grab the text from the line edit. This is done very simply. All we go do is line edit and grab the member called the function. We grab the method called text to return the text that is within its box, or should I say its input area. We then determine if recommended box is checked. If so, within our queue list, we will append the text. We will clear our line edit. We will set the placeholder text back to enter software, and we will ensure the date is set back to the current date. We will also reset recommended to be false. But if not, then all we will do is output an error to the user so that the user knows what's wrong. And we will say, check the box to ensure software is recommended. Don't worry about that one. We then have the display list slot, or should I say function, which is used as a slot when the user clicks the display button. In this case, we will call or create an iterator of type QString QList called I. We'll then iterate through our list and simply output all values within that list. Now if we save, build, and run our project, first of all, notice this is a console application. That is why we have the console in the background. But this is our widget. Notice name is a label, enter software. This is our Q line edit. And we can enter some software. Now notice how the placeholder text will disappear as soon as I type anything. It's gone. But if there's nothing, it comes back. Very neat. Let's say we recommend some software, WhatsApp, and I change the date to the 26th of Feb, and I go to add. I get this error, which says check the box to ensure software is recommended. Okay, check the box, and I go to add. Two things happen. For one, I, the user, hope that the software has been added to some recommended list. I notice that the Q line edit is set back to default, as well as the date. It got set back to the current date. Let's do it again. Let's create Epic Games, and we'll use today's date. We go recommend and we'll go to add. And then we hit the display button. and we get back the intended output. So it works. Great. Now, let's go to our main.cpp file. Notice sets style sheet, which means I somewhere have a style sheet. Typically, this is done with CSS. Qt Creator has a very simple method for creating style sheets. Instead of CSS, we use something called QSS. And it works very similarly to CSS. Let's do our Q label. And let's set the color to blue. Let's save our file, build it, and run. Okay, that's not bright enough. Let's do red, build our file, and run it. And there we go. You would notice that we very simply was able to add style to our widget. Now, you may also notice that right now, the date makes no difference to our application. We can fix this at some later point. But that is all for today.